I'll never forget the night my life changed forever. It was raining. That cold, biting kind of rain that stings your skin no matter how many layers you wear. I had just left the grocery store, my hands trembling from the chill, when I heard it. A faint cry. At first I thought it was a cat shivering under the dumpsters, but something pulled at me. I followed the sound into the alley, the ground sticky with mud and old cardboard, and there she was. A tiny baby girl, wrapped in nothing but a torn jacket, lying beside a pile of rotting trash. Her little face was pale, her lips quivering. I could see her chest struggling to rise and fall. I dropped my groceries right there in the filth. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I wrapped her in my own coat, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. "It's okay, little one," I whispered, feeling my old voice crack. "I'm here. You're not alone." I stumbled into the street, waving my arms, shouting for help, but the cars sped by, the drivers barely glancing my way. A couple walking past crossed to the other side of the street, their eyes full of suspicion. And then, as if it couldn't get any worse, a security guard from a nearby store came running toward me, his hand already reaching for his radio. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked, eyeing me like a criminal. "I found her," I pleaded. "She was in the trash. She needs help." He didn't believe me. He made me stand in the rain while he called the police, one hand hovering near his holster like he expected me to run. I just held her tighter against my chest, shielding her tiny body from the cold. All I could think was, don't let her die. Please, God, don't let her die. They finally let me into the emergency room, but even there, they looked at me with suspicion. An old man, dirty coat, baby in his arms. I saw the questions in their eyes. Where did he get her? Is she his? Is he some lunatic? I didn't care. I sat in the corner, shivering, while the nurses rushed her into a sterile room, sticking tubes and wires into her fragile body. The hours blurred. I couldn't leave. I wouldn't. Even when they told me to go home. Even when they said, "Sir, your part is done." My part? No. My part had just begun. Hours later, a woman in a stiff gray suit approached me. She had a clipboard in one hand and the kind of smile that never quite touches the eyes. "Sir," she said, adjusting her glasses, "thank you for bringing the infant in. Child Protective Services will be taking custody now. You can go home." Go home? I stood up, my knees aching, my voice shaking. "I want to stay with her," I said. I want to help her. If no one comes, I want to take her home." Her smile tightened. "I'm afraid that's not possible. The child will be placed with a foster family. Young, stable individuals better equipped to meet her needs." Young, stable, not old, not broken, not me. I tried to explain that I had raised 3 children of my own, that I had a warm house, a pension, neighbors who trusted me with their kids, but the words felt small against the weight of her polished shoes and cold paperwork. She patted my arm like I was a confused patient who had wandered too far. "Thank you again, sir. You've done all you can." No, I hadn't. As she turned to leave, I called after her, louder than I intended. "I want to adopt her." The hallway went silent. Heads turned. A nurse shook her head softly, almost pitying me. The woman in gray simply laughed, not cruelly, almost sadly. "Sir," she said, "with all due respect, you're too old." 2 words. Too old. They stung more than the cold rain ever could. I watched through the glass as the baby, my baby, lay there under fluorescent lights, surrounded by strangers. I pressed my hand against the glass, my heart heavy with a love I hadn't felt in years. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know if anyone would listen. But deep inside, I made a promise. I will fight for you. I don't care how many doors they slam in my face. I am not leaving you behind. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I was ready for. I wore my best suit, the same one I had worn to my daughter's wedding 20 years ago. It hung looser on me now. My hands trembled slightly as I buttoned the jacket. I sat alone on the hard bench outside the courtroom. Everyone else, the young couples, the foster agency people, they huddled together in soft whispers, glancing at me like I was a relic who had wandered in from another era. When my name was called, I stood up, my knees aching, and stepped into the room. The walls were tall, the air heavy. It smelled faintly of old paper and something colder, something like judgment. The judge barely looked at me. A gray-haired man, but sharper than I was, sharper and colder. He shuffled some papers, cleared his throat. "Mr. Harris," he said, "you are petitioning to adopt an infant at the age of 72. Is that correct?" I nodded, my voice stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat. "Yes, Your Honor." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you aware of your life expectancy, Mr. Harris?" A few people chuckled, small, stifled laughs that echoed louder than any shout. The judge continued, as if reading a weather report. "Statistics suggest that you are likely to pass away before the child reaches adulthood. Have you considered the trauma that might cause?" I opened my mouth, closed it again. How could I explain that love was worth any risk? That abandonment wasn't an issue of when you died, but how you lived. Instead, I simply said, "She was thrown away like trash. I can't let that be the start of her story." For the first time, the judge hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But then he straightened his back, tapping his pen sharply against the desk. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. Your intentions are noted. However, the court must act in the best interest of the child. You may step down." Step down. Those words hit me harder than a slap. I felt them in my chest, in my bones. As I left the stand, I caught sight of her. The baby, cradled in the arms of a social worker, bundled tightly in pink. She was looking around, her little face full of innocent wonder, no idea that the world was already making decisions about her worth. I sat back down, my head bowed, my heart hammering. For the first time in years, I felt truly old. Not because of my body, because of how small and powerless I seemed against the walls around me. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was nothing more than a foolish, broken man trying to hold back the tide. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen. The old fluorescent light above me buzzed and flickered. The house felt bigger somehow, emptier, like even the walls had given up hope. I stared at the pile of papers from the court. Cold, sharp words stamped across them. Petition denied. It was just ink on a page, but it felt like a branding iron against my heart. I poured myself a cup of coffee, but my hands shook too much to drink it. So I just sat there, listening to the tick-tick-tick of the clock, each second reminding me how quickly time was slipping through my fingers. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being selfish. What if I wasn't enough? What if I brought her into a world of struggle, only to leave her alone again? The doubts gnawed at me, old, ugly thoughts that I hadn't let in for years. I closed my eyes and tried to pray, but even the words felt heavy. And then, my eyes drifted to the dusty photo frame sitting on the counter. My wife, Anna, smiling in the late afternoon sun, a picnic spread out behind her, her arms wide open, the way she always welcomed anyone who had nowhere else to go. I could almost hear her voice, soft but firm. "You don't measure love by how many years you have left. You measure it by how well you love while you can." A tear slid down my cheek, and I let it. "No shame in tears," Anna used to say. I stood up slowly, my knees popping, my hands gripping the counter for balance. "No," I whispered to the empty room. "I am not finished, and neither is she." The world might see me as a worn-out man with nothing left to give, but I knew better. I still had a heart full of stories, a house full of warmth, a lifetime of love waiting to be given. I wasn't fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for her chance to grow up knowing she was wanted, not thrown away, not forgotten, never forgotten. The next morning, I walked to the town library. My legs protested every step, but my mind was made up. If they wanted me to prove I could fight, I would, even if I had to do it alone. I sat at one of the dusty public computers, squinting at the screen as I typed, "How to adopt a baby as a senior citizen." The results weren't encouraging. Page after page telling me I had almost no chance. Laws, regulations, statistics. My chest tightened. For a moment, the weight of it all pressed down again. But just as I was about to close the browser, a voice behind me said, "Excuse me, sir, are you trying to adopt?" I turned and saw her, a young woman, maybe late 20s, holding a stack of law books against her chest. Her brown hair was messy, like she had been fighting the wind all morning, and her eyes were kind, curious. I nodded slowly. "Trying," I said, feeling the exhaustion in my voice. "But it seems the world's not too eager to see an old man raise a child." She smiled, not the tight, polite kind, but a real one. "My name's Claire," she said, setting down her books. "I'm a family law intern, and I think you're exactly the kind of man who should be raising a child." I blinked, sure I had misheard. No one had said anything like that to me in months. She pulled out a chair and sat beside me, flipping open one of her textbooks. "Most people don't know this," she said, lowering her voice, "but there are legal precedents for seniors adopting. If we can show you have stable income, a safe home, and community support, you have a real shot." A real shot. The words warmed something deep inside me. Something that had been cold for too long. I stared at her, this stranger who had every reason to walk past me like everyone else did. Instead, she offered something no one else had. Hope. "Why would you help me?" I asked quietly. Claire shrugged, a soft blush rising in her cheeks. "My grandfather raised me when my parents couldn't. He was the best person I ever knew. Age doesn't define love." For the first time in a long time, I smiled, really smiled. Not because the fight was over, but because I finally knew I wouldn't have to fight alone. Together, we started gathering everything we needed. Letters from neighbors, proof of my pension, photos of the nursery I had started setting up in the spare room, testimonies from the pastor, the pharmacist, even the mailman, all saying the same thing: he is not too old to love. A month later, Claire and I stood before the court again. This time I wore the same worn suit, but I held my head a little higher. Claire had helped me prepare everything: a thick file of letters, financial records, photos of the nursery I had painted pale yellow, even a video of neighbors speaking on my behalf. As we approached the bench, I caught a glimpse of the baby girl, my girl, cradled in a social worker's arms again. She was bigger now, cheeks rounder, her tiny hands grasping at the air as if reaching for something just out of sight. For someone. For me. The judge glanced through the file, his expression unreadable. And then, just as Claire began presenting our case, a door at the back of the courtroom opened. Two new people stepped inside. A young couple, polished and glowing, holding hands tightly. The social worker's face lit up. "The court acknowledges the petition from Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore," she announced brightly. "A stable, financially secure couple seeking to adopt the infant immediately." The words hit me like a blow to the gut. Another obstacle. Another reminder that no matter how hard I fought, I was fighting uphill. They were everything I wasn't. Young, wealthy, healthy, perfect on paper. The judge glanced between us, the old man in the second-hand suit, and the perfect couple with sparkling smiles. Claire stood tall beside me. "Your Honor," she said firmly, "while the Whitmores are admirable candidates, Mr. Harris has demonstrated not only financial stability, but profound emotional commitment. He is the child's rescuer. He is the child's family." The judge frowned, flipping through the papers again. I looked down at my wrinkled hands, the veins standing out like rivers on a worn map. How could I compete with youth and beauty? How could I make them see that love wasn't about bank accounts or smooth skin? It was about promises kept, It was about showing up when no one else did. The judge cleared his throat. "I will require a 6-month provisional guardianship period," he said, "during which both parties will be evaluated. At the end of that period, the court will determine permanent custody." 6 months. A lifetime and a heartbeat all at once. I nodded, my throat tight. I would have agreed to 6 years if it meant a chance to hold her again. Claire squeezed my arm gently. "This isn't over," she whispered. "It's just beginning." The first night I brought her home, I barely slept. Not because she cried. She was an easy sleeper, gentle and trusting. No, I stayed awake just to watch her breathe. Each tiny rise and fall of her chest felt like a miracle stitched back into my broken world. Her name, the social worker said, was Baby Girl Doe, anonymous, temporary. But to me, she was hope. I called her that from the moment I laid her down in the small crib I had built with my own hands. The days that followed were harder than I ever imagined. I had forgotten how exhausting a baby could be. Changing diapers with stiff fingers, warming bottles while the arthritis in my knuckles screamed, waking every 2 hours through the long, cold nights. There were moments I almost crumbled. When she spiked a fever and I rushed her to the emergency room, heart hammering so loud I couldn't hear the doctor's reassurances. When the heating broke during a winter storm, and I spent the night sitting by the oven with her wrapped inside my coat, whispering stories to keep her calm. And always, always there were the visits. The caseworkers, the inspectors, the surprise evaluations, measured looks, polite smiles, clipboards noting every crack in the wall, every tremor in my hand. Sometimes I caught myself thinking of the Whitmores, young, healthy, perfect. How easy it must have been for them, how hard it was for me. But then, Hope would wake from her naps, blinking up at me with those wide brown eyes, and when she saw me, her whole face would light up. Her arms would reach for me without hesitation, without doubt. In her eyes, I wasn't old. I wasn't broken. I was her safe place, her home. Each day, I grew a little stronger, not in body. The aches stayed, the bones still creaked, but inside, in spirit. Together, we built our own rhythm, our own small world of trust and laughter. There were no grand victories, no standing ovations, only quiet moments, a steady bottle-fed meal. The first giggle when I made silly faces, the way she would fall asleep on my chest, her tiny hand clutching my shirt like a lifeline. Every little moment whispered the same thing, keep going. She's worth it. And so was I. 6 months passed faster than I could have imagined, and somehow not fast enough. The day of the final hearing, I woke before dawn. I dressed Hope in her best little dress, pale blue with tiny white daisies stitched across the front. She cooed and clapped her hands as I buttoned her up, completely unaware of the battle being fought over her future. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "No matter what happens today, you will always be loved." When we arrived at the courthouse, the Whitmores were already there, polished, beautiful. The woman smiled sadly at me, almost like she pitied me. Claire met us at the steps, her face serious. "You did everything you could," she said, her hand briefly squeezing my arm. "Now we let the truth speak." Inside, the courtroom felt colder than before. Sterile, heavy. The judge, the same gray-haired man, shuffled his papers slowly. The social worker spoke first, listing the Whitmores' many qualifications. Their income, their education, their suburban home with a backyard and golden retriever. On paper, they were perfect. Then it was Claire's turn. She rose, her voice steady but full of quiet fire. "Your Honor, Mr. Harris has not only demonstrated financial stability and community support, but more importantly, he has demonstrated love. He rescued this child. He nurtured her when no one else would. She recognizes him not as a stranger, but as her father." The judge leaned back, hands steepled under his chin. "Does the child have any visible bond with Mr. Harris?" he asked, almost skeptical. Claire looked at me, nodded slightly. With my heart pounding, I stood up. Hope squirmed in my arms, fussing at the formality. I set her down gently on the floor. For a moment, she blinked at the cavernous room, the solemn faces, the heavy silence, and then she toddled unsteadily across the courtroom straight toward me, arms outstretched, laughing her sweet, clear laugh. I bent down as she crashed into me, wrapping her little arms around my neck with all the trust in the world. The courtroom gasped, not loudly, but enough. Even the judge's eyes softened, just a little. He tapped his gavel once, cleared his throat. In the matter of custody for the minor known as Baby Girl Doe, this court finds in favor of Mr. Harris. My knees nearly buckled. Claire squeezed my shoulder so hard it almost hurt. Hope buried her face in my chest, safe, warm, home. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, they were tears of joy. 2 years later, my house no longer feels empty. It's filled with tiny shoes by the door, crayon drawings taped to the fridge, the constant hum of lullabies and giggles. Hope is 3 now. Her curls bounce when she runs. Her laughter fills every crack in these old walls. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, when she's curled up on my lap with her thumb in her mouth, breathing softly against my chest, I think back to that night in the rain. The night I found her, or maybe the night she found me. People still stare sometimes when they see us at the park. An old man chasing a toddler, a cane tucked under one arm, both of us laughing like fools. I don't mind anymore. I let them look, because they'll never understand the kind of bond that was born not from blood, but from a promise to never leave her behind. I won't pretend it's easy. There are nights my joints ache so bad I can barely lift her. There are mornings when getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain. But when she wraps her little arms around my neck and whispers, "I love you, Papa," the pain fades. The years melt away. All that's left is love. All that's ever mattered is love. If there's one thing I've learned through this journey, it's this. You are never too old to change a life. You are never too broken to be someone's beginning. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to say, "I will love you no matter what." If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been told you were too old or not enough and proved them wrong? I'd love to hear your story too.